Here today, so my name is Dr. Judith. I'm Director of Health and Wellbeing at Mace, and I'm part of the founding members of the Workplace Wellbeing Practitioner Forum, and I'm here today with Professor Sir Cary Cooper, who I think doesn't really need any introduction, but Cary is the first of our interviews around workplace health and wellbeing and being how you can develop yourself as a practitioner. So I've got a few questions that I'd like to pose to you today, Cary, if I may. Yeah. So what advice would you give to a new health and wellbeing practitioner beginning their career in this field?
Okay, remember the field is brand new. I mean, it's only been around, like, say, about 5 years, 6 years. Okay, so first I would say go find out what other people are currently doing. So we now have lots of directors of health and well-being in a variety of companies and public sector bodies. So what do they do? So find out what they do, and you'll get a variety of different responses to that. By the way, there's no one size fits all. That's one thing, because that'll help you understand it. I think you need to know about management. Mm-hmm. You need to know about what an organization culture is like. Where you get those kinds of information from, I mean, it could be going on courses, it could be reading, I don't know what, but you need to know that, because you aren't just looking at the employee, you have to look at the whole culture, because well-being is about changing the culture and having a good day at work type culture. You need to know about health and safety, because there's lots of industries that do mainly the safety bit. So all of that is important, but because it's such a new field, go to where the good practice is. Go to the directors of health and well-being in a number of good organizations, and that'll give you a clue as to the breadth of experience that you will need.
Fantastic. And what would your 3 top tips be for a practitioner implementing a wellbeing strategy?
I think in implementing a wellbeing strategy, I'd say one thing you need to do is you need to get a baseline in an organization of how employees perceive it. So you need a wellbeing survey. I don't think there's any way out. There's enough psychometrics around to do that. And that will tell you how different people with different demographics, women, senior managers, employees on the shop floor, think about the organization, how they perceive the organization. You need that. So that's the first thing. You have to learn how to do a well-being audit. Then you have to, I think, the second thing you have to do is you have to then deal with the issues you see that arise.
Yep.
But those change, by the way. So that's why in a way, you have to repeat well-being audits on a regular basis. You know, that you don't go to your dentist once and then stop for 10 years. You need to go back to the dentist to be looked at every year. So I think really frequently you have to keep upgrading, because you deal with certain problems and other problems emerge. So you have to do it over a long period of time. And then you have to deal with the kind of issues you see. But then you have to work, in my view, with the director of health and well-being or HR or occupational health, whoever is responsible in the organization or whatever team. I think you have to work with them on what would prevent the stress-related illness, the presenteeism, the poor performance, and all of that. You have to think it through. The benchmarking helps, but you have to then get to know the organization and the culture, because that's what you're trying to change.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's something we've been doing in Mace, obviously working with Robertson Cooper, is measuring, we're halfway through a 6-year research project essentially, but measuring wellbeing year on year so that we can start to take stock and understand the interventions that we need to put in place between those years to actually work on the results, as opposed to just tokenistic or engagement type activities, which are good but aren't going to actually get to the root cause of the issue.
But also, which is another characteristic, is you're collecting the data to convince senior management it's as important as safety.
Yeah, exactly.
Or any other performance related issue, because it is.
Yeah.
And so they need to be convinced. So you have to collect the data that shows the intervention works or might not work. It might not work, by the way, and if it doesn't work, fine, dump it. But if it works, great, you can build on that, and that's important lesson to learn. So evaluating interventions is another characteristic.
Yeah, and one of the things another question I was going to ask is around what you think an essential skill and competency required by a health and wellbeing practitioner is to succeed. But I think you probably answered that in terms of they need to understand the business. It's not just about
Oh my
their
goodness,
well-being
yes.
and their passion for that area. You've got to know
No.
how that fits in context.
You have to understand the culture of the business you're operating in. You have to understand the mindset of senior people and how you convince them and get them on board with this as a construct. You have to convince them that it's not just a nice to have for employees, but a must have for the bottom line of the business.
Yeah.
Whether it's sickness absence rates, presenteeism rates, performance, whatever it is, accidents, that's what you have to do in the end. And it's not difficult to do that, but you have to have the expertise to be able to do that.
And how would you encourage practitioners to actually develop their careers so they can kind of build up those skills?
I mean, the problem we have is that there's no one place that does health and well-being. So you can't do a master's degree in health and well-being, although I must
You
admit.
can, I did one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, you did.
Yeah,
And,
which
and
is
actually,
unusual.
but there are very few.
They are, you're right.
Manchester Business School has one.
Yeah.
So you can do a master's degree in organization psychology, and basically it's about well-being.
Yeah.
If you look at all of it. But it adds on things like selection and assessment. But by the way, that's important, because if you're trying to pick line managers or you're trying to promote people, and you want to make sure you get their people skill issue in,
Yeah.
then you have to use psychometrics and other techniques to get that aspect of them,
Yeah.
other than just what they've done and their technical skills. So there are a few places you can go to do a master's degree on this. You're not going to get it very much on the undergraduate level, but it will increase, by the way, in the undergraduate level. So that is part of it. And we need more training. And what we actually need is we need the various institutions like CIPD and others to get together and say, what would a curriculum like this be like if you want to go in a different level? CIPD has been thinking about that a long time for people who are qualified as HR people but want to specialize in health and well-being. But we're going to do that. In 5 years' time, that will be out. We will know precisely the elements of a good health and well-being practitioner.
And the Society of Occupational Medicine has just adopted
Yep.
something my friend and colleague Evan Davidge has put together,
Yeah.
which is around a set of criteria or almost things you can pledge to say as a wellbeing practitioner, these are the areas that you need to be skilled in to be
Yeah.
kind of competent in this
Yeah.
area. But I agree that the different industry bodies need to
Yeah, we
come
need
together.
to do it from a safety perspective,
Absolutely.
from a occupational psychology perspective, from an HR perspective,
Yeah,
and from a business perspective.
absolutely. And finally, what are your predictions for health and wellbeing in 2020? What do you think? Where do you think we're going next?
Even beyond 2020, I would say that the two critical issues that industry has to hit, and Peter Cheese of the CIPD, the chief exec, and I both agree on this. One is well-being. One is how do we create a culture where people love coming to work, commit to their job, want to produce well, because we have a productivity problem in the UK. We're tied 6th with Italy on in the G7 on productivity per capita and 17th in the G20. That is poor.
Yeah.
Our competitors are killing us. So we create the right kind of culture. So I see this as a business issue. This is a board issue. And along with that is the environment, sustainability, and all those, because they are critical too. And the things kind of go hand in hand. You create the right kind of culture. You change the physical environment. You have less paper. You do all the things that are about which is about sustainable people.
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about. So sustainability is probably the arch thing. And
Yeah.
underneath that is sustainable people and sustainable work environment.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Cary.
Thank you.